It's hard to think of a more charming artist than Edward Bawden. His really gorgeous, much-loved commercial work, designing everything from posters to brochures for well-known clients like Fortnum & Mason, is about to go on show here at Dulwich Picture Gallery. But surprisingly, it's also hard to think of a more modest one. He once said, "Being an artist is a cockeyed thing to be. I'm simply a person who makes dirty marks on a piece of paper." I'm about to meet one of Bawden's former assistants, Peter Avery, to find out more about this artist who, in public at least, was always so humble about his precocious talent. Peter, hi. It's very good to see you, and I'm delighted we can do this interview in the garden, because I know that gardens were essential. They were a real passion for Bawden, weren't they?
Absolutely.
A very keen gardener, as I understand.
Very keen gardener. 2 hours in the morning, first thing.
Loved Kew Gardens?
Loved Kew Gardens. Loved the Chelsea Flower Show.
In fact, you worked together, as I understand it, on a very famous print he did of the famous pagoda at Kew.
The pagoda was one of his key prints, yeah, and I did the whole edition. 75 times, I think, 12 colours.
You obviously worked as his assistant. This is early 60s?
63, 64.
How did this come about? How did you meet him?
I met him because I was a theatre designer and I went to the V&A for a day off and I saw Edward's Liverpool Street print and his Brighton Pier print. And I thought I'll write him a letter, see if he needs some help, see if I can change direction. And of course I got a letter by return saying, come over. And then we had tea in the sitting room.
So this is Great Bardfield is a village in Essex?
Yeah, it's a very small, pretty village in Essex, yes, on the River Pant.
What sort of house did he live in?
Right at the top of the town in a beautiful Queen Anne house.
Which was called Brick House?
Brick House.
It's fascinating to hear the backstory. I think that's the context, but we could spend all day in the garden. I think we should see the show.
Oh, I'd love to, yeah.
Let's go in. You see, I think this gallery is fascinating, and for lots of people is going to be the revelation of the exhibition, because you have all of the work that he was producing, or lots of it, during the war, when he was an official war artist.
I think the important thing was, and I think he'd say so, was that it brought him close up to people. This is when the first time he started really looking at people working at portraits for the first time. He would say that his figures in pictures up to then were like Cruikshank, sort of little stick figures, just little symbols of people in his pictures.
You can see them elsewhere in the exhibition. They are small, quite cartoon-like, they're very illustrative, they're not real people, they're part of a design. And here you feel he had all of these adventures in the war, and he's in the Middle East, he's in North Africa, he's meeting people, he's clearly stimulated by what was going on.
Very much so.
And these are rather wonderful portraits, proper portraits if you like.
I think this is a very important moment for him, where he's able to sit and draw people very close to them in great detail.
Should we get back to safer ground with the lino cut in another room?
I think so, yeah.
A London station. I think the wartime portraits are going to be a surprise, but many people will be very familiar with the works in this room. These are the big lino cuts he starts producing after the war. And you had a hand in actually producing some of them.
The Linsell Church one was about this period, which you see in the monitor film we're printing together, showing you how it's done, because these are so big, they won't go into a press, of course, so you had to print them by walking on them on the floor.
So maybe you could just talk a little bit about the technical complexity of what goes into making the print.
Well, the main block, which is, it would be nice to see a block so beautifully cut, would go on the floor with one registration mark, and you'd roll the paper over onto the block facing up, and then you put a mat on there, and then you'd walk all over it.
And that's one colour?
That's one colour, yeah.
Peel off the paper?
Peel off the paper and do the next colour. Well, you'd have to put it up in a drying rack for a day or two to do it, and then do it again. As I say, with the pagoda print I did, I think it was 12, 15 colours times 75, so you were very fit doing that.
So, now, I can see some brick. Is this Brick House we're looking at?
This is Brick House. This is the farm yard, I think, at the back of Brick House. But this is definitely the view from the house into the garden we've been talking about in winter.
I see, so you can see the walls there around it.
Yes, exactly. And the farmyard was beyond there, which was rather a rustic, rather romantic farmyard. And this is where the new studio was placed, which is where I worked with Edward. And this was the house of the police. Beyond here would be the police station.
So this is a fascinating work in its own right. This predates your time working as an assistant.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really elaborate, technically extremely proficient watercolour from the 30s.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the title, it's fascinating, February, 2 p.m. It's so specific about this particular moment of this snowstorm, the blizzard, and it has quite a sort of surprisingly dry and scratchy quality to the watercolour.
It does, yeah. My feeling, it feels very much like a coloured drawing.
It's interesting to think about, in those days, middle years of the 20th century, I imagine there was much more of a divide, if you like, between fine art, proper art, and commercial design. This is the fine art stuff that he exhibited in galleries. Was he proud of this work? Did he hang it at home?
He did. I just get that feeling that it's as though it was a sort of duty thing in order to have an exhibition, to establish himself as a fine artist, or maybe to have that 2 months painting or something. But I felt it was in order to support his design work. But that's my personal feeling.
Peter, thank you so much for sharing your memories of Edward. It's really great to be in the exhibition with you.
It's been a pleasure coming and seeing it all.
Thank you.